دنیای امروز جهان ارتباطات آنی و خلق الساعه است. در این جهان سرنوشت هیچ ملتی از ملل دیگر جدا نیست. در چنین شرایطی جنبش سبز چگونه میتونه از حقوق مدنی ملت ایران دفاع بکنه بدون اینکه مورد سوء استفاده ابرقدرت‌ها قرار بگیره و بلکه سرآغاز جنبش‌های نوین رهایی بخشی در همه جهان باشه؟ سلام، من حمید دباشی هستم و این برنامه شما هفته سبز.
جنبش سبز هفته 26.
یار دبستانی من با من و همراه منی، شورهر هر سر ما بغض من و آر منی، حج شد اسم من و تو دوچن این دست سیاه ترکل بیداد و
روز 16 آذر دوستان و همدانشکده‌هایمان را فراموش نخواهیم کرد و برای آزادیشان و پایان این ظلم همراه یکدیگر در خیابان شهرهایمان در اقصا نقاط دنیا دست به اعتراض خواهیم زد. دانشگاه‌ها همچنان به عنوان پایگاه مقاومت در برابر ستم‌های رفته بر مردم پایداری می‌کنند. هفته گذشته این اعتراض‌ها در دانشگاه‌های خواجه نصیر، فردوسی مشهد، تهران، دانشگاه رازی کرمانشاه، صنعتی سهند و دانشگاه‌های اصفهان ادامه داشت. این بار دانشجویان نه تنها با نوشتن شعار بر دیوارهای دانشگاه، بلکه با اعتصاب غذا و راهپیمایی به عدم رضایت خود رنگی دیگر بخشیدند. با این حال اخراج و بازداشت دانشجویان در دانشگاه‌ها قدرتمندترین جبهه مبارزه جنبش سبز همچنان ادامه دارد. در حالی که بسیج و سپاه پاسداران برای سرکوب تظاهرات در روز دانشجو آماده می‌شوند، میرحسین موسوی و آیت الله منتظری نقدهای تندی بر فعالیت‌های اخیر بسیج ارائه دادند. آیت الله منتظری در این ارتباط گفت: فلسفه تشکیل بسیج در راه خدا بود و نه شیطان. دختر شهید باکری از اعضای بسیج در سخنرانی خود تاکید کرد: اگر پدر و عموی من زنده بودند، جنایاتی را که امروز به اسم بسیج انجام می‌دهند را بر نمی‌تابیدند و بیشک به جرم مخالفت با نظام در اوین به سر می‌بردند. در هفته اخیر زهرا رهنورد به عنوان سومین فرد سیاسی تاثیرگذار در سال 2009 توسط مجله فارن پالیسی انتخاب شد. این نشان می‌دهد که سبزها علیرغم خشونت و سرکوب رژیم قادر به اعلان قدرت و اراده خود و فرستادن پیغامشان به سرتاسر جهان هستند. میرحسین موسوی در آخرین بیانیه خود به یاد ما آورد: بدانیم که بالاتر از سیاهی رنگی نیست و ترساندن تیر آخر ترکش است و ما بر این ظلم فائق خواهیم آمد.
با سلام مجدد. یکی از مسائلی رو که جنبش سبز بهاش مواجه هست اینه که چطور ممکنه وقتی یک ملتی برای آزادی‌های مدنیش در حال مبارزه هست، زبان و گویش این مبارزه رو گویش جهانی شده نیولیبرالیسم جهانی در گفتمان خودش هضم نکنه و مصادره نکنه. میهمان امروز ما خانم گایتری چاکربورتی اسپیوک، یکی از برجسته‌ترین فلاسفه و نظریه پردازان معاصر دنیاست. Thanks Gayatri for joining us. Gayatri, the question that we have is how can we talk about human rights, civil rights, women's rights in the context of what in Iran we call the Green Movement, without the language of rights being assimilated in the language of the hegemonic language of neoliberalism?
Hamid, that's the struggle. In other words, we cannot give up this language. And I'll tell you this, that among young radical people in India, people that I know, there's a hope that in fact this example, what's happening in Iran, will help them as well. It is the struggle to wrench that discourse, to win that discourse back from this kind of moral political high ground, from that appropriation.
The obvious question that comes after that is, what about specifically women's rights? How can we talk about women's rights in this context without the language of women's rights being appropriated in the neoliberal context?
Iranian women really don't need to hear from me how to, because we really look forward to what they do in terms of writing what is specifically Iranian from Persian history into women's rights. I mean, I've heard this in public here and there. But it seems to me the real problem with women's rights within general civil rights movements, including this one, is for the women not to forget. Not to forget that that is always in the forefront. It is not something that comes later. It is not ancillary. And then after that, the notion that the emancipation of women or the liberation of women, which is that Eurocentric discourse, even military intervention takes it over, that I think that way of thinking has to be profoundly changed. And I don't think the Iranian women really are lacking in this perception, but I will say it anyway. I mean, what we are really thinking about is making women's strength visible and doing this together, rather than freeing them from something essentially traditional and bad. So we are really talking about women's counter-modernity, you know, rather than just kind of free them from bad Islam, let's say.
My next question is about nonviolent civil rights movement. As you know, in Iran, many people are considering this to be our Gandhian moment or Martin Luther King moment. Our problem, however, is that we are talking about a nonviolent civil rights movement in face of a very violent regime that does not hesitate from kidnapping people, torturing people, raping people, etc. What do you think is the measure of success? How can we talk about a measure of success in this context?
I mean, this is a very hard question. I don't think that it can be answered quickly. It is true that Gandhi took the nonviolent way within the context of British colonialism, and there had been armed struggle immediately defined as terrorist before. Gandhi, in his extraordinary political theater, realized, A, that the British could be embarrassed by this man, and so he took off his suit and put on his loincloth. And also in Britain, there was this move for the Labour government to come in and so on. So there was a connection with internal politics. What Martin Luther King has seen Gandhi as, that is to say, a Christian liberation theologian, it's a wonderful way to animate the civil rights movement here. But I don't know if the model of passive resistance, how long that can really last. I'm myself a pacifist, but I said in an answer to a question about Palestine, I said that what happens in a situation like that of violence is that I am not allowed to be a pacifist, that they do not allow me to be an ethical person. They drag me into just a political person. So that remains for me, Hamid, I'm sorry to say, a problem. These wonderful young people, and that they should be cut down like this in the name of passive resistance. On the other hand, as I say, this dilemma is faced as a pacifist myself.
The problem is that when you compare it with Gandhi or Martin Luther King, Gandhi had simultaneously militant uprisings. With Martin Luther King, you had Black Panthers, you had Malcolm X. But this one doesn't have any military wherewithal.
Well, once again, as I said to you before, that it is hard for me to think of myself as giving a lesson to the Iranians, because it is from them that we are learning a lot in terms of what's happening. Having said that, however, and also acknowledging that as a pacifist, it is hard for me to speak about guerrilla warfare and so on and so forth. In the context of history, I'm thinking now of Latin America. Yeah. It becomes difficult to imagine that given the way in which the two sides are mismatched, that a policy of passive resistance is all that one should speak of.
Do you, Gayatri, think that the global witness that this movement has can be translated or is translated into a political force?
It can have weight. I don't think we have really, you would know better, but have we come forth sufficiently to witness? But I don't really see that. I mean, that's why, in spite of the fact that I'm not completely knowledgeable about the situation, except for this kind of real solid support and solidarity, I said yes. I said yes, I would come and talk to you because I feel that there should be a little more global witness.
Gayatri, thanks for joining us. پرهیز از هر گونه خشونت و ضرورت خشونت زدایی از کل ساحت فرهنگ سیاسی ایران بدان معنا نیست که چشم بینای ملت‌ها و خرد نقاد صاحب نظران شاهد ظلم مستبدان جمهوری اسلامی نیست. وظیفه ما هر کجای دنیا که هستیم نظارت و شهادت بر کوچکترین اعمال خشونتبار جمهوری اسلامی است. در جمهوری اسلامی هیچ چماقی فرو نخواهد آمد بدون آنکه ما اسناد آن را در تمام دنیا منتشر کنیم. در ایران فریاد هیچ مظلومی بر نخواهد خاست بدون آنکه ما پژواک آن فریاد در تمام دنیا باشیم. من حمید دباشی هستم. تا هفته سبز دیگه، خدا نگهدار.